Welcome back, everyone. I'm Jordan Giesige, and this is The Limiting Factor. In Tesla's Q4 2024 earnings call, Elon Musk said that Tesla is currently constrained by batteries. What did he mean by that? And how could that be given that currently, globally, there's a glut of battery cell supply? Today, I'm going to give you my best guess based on what we know about Tesla's battery supply chain. Before we begin, a special thanks to my Patreon supporters, YouTube members, and Twitter subscribers, as well as Rebellionaire.com. They specialize in helping investors manage concentrated positions. Rebellionaire can help with covered calls, risk management, and creating a money master plan from your financial first principles. Let's start by reviewing all the comments Elon made in the earnings call about battery constraints, and then in the rest of the video, I'll address the points he made. In his opening statement, he said, quote, "Our current constraint is battery packs this year, but we're working on addressing that constraint. And I think we will make progress in addressing that constraint. And then things are really going to go ballistic next year." End quote. In the middle of the earnings call, he said, quote, "We have to be careful that we're not robbing from one pocket to take to another pocket, because for a given gigawatt hours per year of the cell output, does it go into stationary applications or mobile applications? It can't go into both, so we have to make that trade-off." End quote. At the end of the earnings call, he said, quote, "Right now, the constraint we're trying to solve is battery production as opposed to demand. The executive team and I were talking about just before this call was we've got to figure out how to increase total gigawatt hours of battery production this year, one way or another." End quote. Unfortunately, there were no follow-up questions asked at the earnings call to gain clarification on any of those comments, so we pretty much have to work from a blank slate here. With that in mind, let's start by clarifying some of the wording he used. In the first comment, when Elon says battery packs, does he mean the battery cells that go into the battery packs or turning the battery cells into battery packs? In my view, turning the battery cells into battery packs isn't the likely bottleneck for battery pack production because it's an easier process with fewer supply constraints than battery cell production. That assumption appears to be confirmed in the next statement when Elon talks specifically about gigawatt hours per year of cell output. So for the rest of the video, I'm going to run with that assumption and focus on cell supply. Next, when Elon said current constraint this year, did he mean that Tesla is currently constrained and that will continue throughout the year, or that Tesla isn't currently constrained and at some point in the year Tesla will become constrained? With one exception, my view is that Tesla isn't currently constrained and the constraints will come later in the year. To understand why, we have to get a 10,000-foot view of Tesla's battery supply chain, and the best way to do that is by splitting Tesla's cell supply into two types: cylindrical cells, which are just used for vehicles, and prismatic cells, which are used for vehicles and energy storage. Starting with cylindrical cells, the Cybertruck appears to be the least cell-constrained of vehicles that use that cell type. I say that because in the Q4 slide deck, Tesla stated that in-house production of 4680s exceeded 2,500 Cybertrucks per week. At 123 kilowatt hours per battery pack, that's about 16 gigawatt hours per year. At the moment, 2,500 packs per week is plenty of cell supply because currently Cybertruck production is at about 1,000 vehicles per week, or less than half of what the 4680 lines are currently able to produce. I don't know what Tesla's doing with that extra capacity. They could be stockpiling those cells, or they could just be running the line slower than the peak production rate. Either way, that capacity will likely be used for the Cybertruck or other vehicles later in the year. Second, let's look at U.S. vehicle production beyond the Cybertruck. Tesla's vehicle production has been relatively flat for a couple of years now, and Tesla's done a lot to reduce prices to move those vehicles out the door. That is, the production rate seems to be more determined by demand at the current vehicle prices than cell supply, which is why, as we'll discuss later in the video, Tesla will be releasing more affordable vehicles. Let's zoom in on U.S. vehicle sales. My understanding is that Tesla's annual production rate for the Model Y is around 350,000 vehicles per year and 200,000 vehicles per year for the Model 3. Those vehicles are now all using 2170 cells sourced from the U.S. to take advantage of the $7,500 customer tax credit. If each of those battery packs is 80 kilowatt hours, that's about 44 gigawatt hours worth of 2170 cells, which is enough to completely chew up Tesla's cell supply from Panasonic in Nevada. We don't have any up-to-date information about the production rate in Nevada, but as of 2 years ago, it was around 38 to 39 gigawatt hours, and there were plans to expand it by about 10%. If that expansion actually occurred, it could put the current production capacity at around 43 gigawatt hours per year. That is, the cell supply from Nevada and the demand from the vehicle production lines roughly align. The cell supply does appear to come up a bit short compared to the 44 gigawatt hour estimate of what's needed for Tesla's U.S. vehicles, but there's potentially a bit of wiggle room in the 43 gigawatt hour battery supply figure because Panasonic has 2170 production capacity in Japan that may also qualify for the customer tax credits. Long-range Tesla vehicles in China and Europe also use 2170 cells, but all of those cells are sourced from LG Chem instead. I don't know what LG Chem's capacity is to produce those cells, but I don't expect there to be an issue with cell supply from LG Chem because they have deeper cell production reserves than Panasonic, and because the bulk of the Tesla vehicles sold in China and Europe are standard range vehicles that use LFP battery cells sourced from BYD and CATL. Lastly, the Model S and X use cylindrical 18650 cells from Japan, but there's no issues with cell supply there. The line that provides those cells is capable of 10 gigawatt hours, and Tesla's only using about 5 gigawatt hours of that output. What all this means is that currently the Cybertruck Model S and X all have a lot of room to run on cell supply, while the long-range Model 3 and Y look good on cell supply in China and Europe, but may be constrained in the U.S. because cell supply is tapped out at Giga Nevada. However, Tesla plans on releasing new vehicles in the first half of 2025, pushing the production of their existing vehicle factories up from about 1.8 million to 3 million, a 60% increase. That means Tesla must find a way to increase their cell supply in the next 3 to 6 months. Luckily, it appears that Tesla's been working on lining up cell supply for a while now, and it should hit their supply chain soon. First, Tesla has ample spare capacity for the 4680 cell production in Giga Austin. Only one coating line is currently running out of the 4 that are installed. But that's just for the anode side of the battery. The cathode is currently being imported at high cost from Asia. That means we don't know how much of the capacity at Austin can actually be utilized because we don't yet know if Tesla can produce the cathode rolls in-house using their dry process. In the Q2 earnings call, Tesla said that they intended to begin the production of fully dry cells in Q4, so it should be underway. Unfortunately, no questions were asked about this in the Q4 earnings call. With that said, in past videos, I said those lines wouldn't really get rolling until the middle of this year. If they do, that's tens of gigawatt hours of production that could be coming online later this year. But what if that doesn't happen? Let's look at Tesla's suppliers, which are working on building production capacity for 2170 and 4680 cells in the United States, Japan, and South Korea. We don't have confirmation yet, but given the form factors, locations, and companies involved, let's assume that Tesla has options on at least some of the capacity I'm about to discuss. First, Panasonic started ramping a 4680 plant in Japan with a capacity of 10 gigawatt hours per year a few months ago. Additionally, Panasonic is working on ramping 2170 battery cell production in Kansas in the fourth quarter of their 2025 financial year, which my understanding is the current financial quarter. That plant has a capacity of 30 gigawatt hours per year. Second, LG Chem has a 4680 line in Korea that's already started production, and that has a capacity of 8 gigawatt hours. LG Chem is also working on building a 4680 plant in Arizona, which has a capacity of 36 gigawatt hours. That plant won't start production until early 2026, but it would serve as a good backup supply for the multiple production ramps that Tesla is starting this year and will continue until late 2026. Will all that be enough additional cell supply for Tesla? It appears so. It's likely going to take Tesla 18 months or so to fully ramp 1.2 million units of additional production capacity, and those vehicles will probably use battery packs that are 25% smaller than a long-range battery pack. Let's say Tesla can hit a production rate of about 300,000 by the end of this year, and each battery pack is about 60 kilowatt hours. That production rate increase may seem like a stretch, but Tesla's going to be building those vehicles on the same manufacturing lines as their current vehicle lineup, which should increase the speed of the production ramp. Globally, that would mean 18 gigawatt hours of additional cell demand by the end of the year. Even if that demand is all for high nickel cylindrical battery cells, which is very unlikely because LFP would make more sense for lower cost vehicles, it could be served by the Panasonic or LG Chem plants in Japan and South Korea, where production is already underway. Then, as the larger battery plants ramp in the U.S., they could fill in the U.S. supply, while the two plants in Asia use their cell supply for Europe and China. Next year, of course, Tesla's cell demand will increase even more for the Semi and Cybercab. However, given that it will be early in the ramp for both products, I don't expect a huge amount of demand. So, to summarize, the combination of cylindrical cell production from Tesla's in-house lines and the lines from Panasonic and LG Chem should have Tesla reasonably well covered for vehicle production this year and into next year. And that's not even taking into account that Tesla will likely be using a lot of LFP battery cells to meet that demand as well. As I said, it does of course assume that Tesla has options on the third-party supply. But the point is that we don't have to look far for a solution. As a final note, some people might point out that Tesla has about 10 gigawatt hours of 4680 production capacity at their Cato Road facility in Fremont, but that's for R&D, so I purposely excluded it as a reliable source of cell supply. Now that I've covered the cylindrical cell supply, let's look at the rest of Tesla's product line, which uses prismatic LFP battery cells. Products that use those cells include Tesla's Megapacks, Powerwalls, and standard range vehicles in China and Europe. For me, this was the most confusing part of the battery supply puzzle. Let's take it apart. Elon said that Tesla has to be careful not to rob stationary or mobile applications of cell supply because the batteries can't go into both, and so trade-off decisions have to be made. That doesn't align with my understanding of how the prismatic battery cell market works. Typically, the prismatic LFP cells for vehicles are less than 200 amp hours. That's because if larger cells are used, then there wouldn't be enough battery cells wired in series to hit the 300 to 400 volts necessary for DC fast charging. For grid storage, the prismatic LFP battery cells are larger because there are so many cells in a megapack that hitting the voltage target is easy, and because larger cells make it cheaper and easier to manufacture the megapack. That is, you can't just swap the battery cells between use cases without de-optimizing the battery pack for the use case. It is possible to change the size of the prismatic cell that's produced on the cell lines, but it's difficult and costly. I can only guess that what's going on here is that Tesla may have a certain amount of LFP prismatic battery cell production capacity allotted to them by CATL, and they have to decide on how that's split between cell types when CATL spins up new battery lines for them. But that's just a stab in the dark on my part. If you know something about how those battery supply contracts might work, let us know in the comments below. Either way, what makes this doubly confusing is that every report and indication I've seen is that there's a glut of LFP battery cells in China, which is part of the reason why battery cell prices dropped to their lowest ever in 2024. So it's strange that Tesla appears to be highlighting a constraint for prismatic battery cells. I can see three potential reasons for the difference in what Tesla's saying and what the reports are indicating. Note, these aren't mutually exclusive. First, most of the glut is in lower-cost battery cells that are less desirable, and top-tier manufacturers like CATL aren't having as much of an issue moving cells. With that said, CATL allegedly just sold some prismatic LFP production equipment to Tesla for installation at Giga Nevada, which indicates CATL had excess production capacity as well. Second, it may be that the lithium-ion battery glut is starting to turn around. That's what's happening in the lithium market, and I'll be interested to see if cell production follows suit. From my perspective, this appears to be the least plausible explanation. Third, the constraint is simply due to the fact that Tesla intends to massively increase their vehicle production output in the next year, and is also on the verge of ramping Megapack production in Shanghai. So they're likely going to need 40 gigawatt hours or more of prismatic LFP battery supply by the end of the year. That's roughly a 50% increase in Tesla's cell demand for LFP, which can't exactly be ramped overnight. As a final note on prismatic cell supply, a moment ago I said that Tesla allegedly purchased LFP production equipment from CATL. That's rumored to be about 10 gigawatt hours of production capacity. I left that out of this analysis because it could take a couple of years for that manufacturing line to hit volume production. In summary, the only current potential battery constraint I see for Tesla is cylindrical battery supply from Giga Nevada for the battery cells that go into the US-made long-range Model 3 and Y. But as the year progresses and Tesla spools up their new Megapack factory in Shanghai and launches more affordable vehicles, constraints could begin to appear. That wouldn't mean no growth, just that cell supply could become the rate-limiting factor for their other production ramps. That is, I don't see Elon's comment about cell supply as a serious concern. Tesla struggled with battery cell constraints for most of the past 15 years, so it's nothing new. However, it is disappointing. Battery Day was 5 years ago, and the tagline was that in terms of cell supply, the 4680 was supposed to make Tesla the master of their own destiny. As a final note, although many people are now rightly focused on the enormous profit potential of Cybercab and Optimus, battery supply could keep them from ramping as fast as they otherwise could. So, if there was any time in the last 2 years where investors should be asking for more details about the battery supply chain, it's now. For those that submit or vote on say.com for the shareholder questions, these 3 questions might be helpful for the next earnings call. First, can you provide a status update on the fully dry 4680 production lines that were scheduled to start production in Q4? Second, in the last earnings call, you highlighted batteries as the primary constraint this year. Could you elaborate on those constraints and the strategy for addressing them? Third, could we have another Battery Day to bring us up to date on the progress and innovations since the first Battery Day in 2020? In the next video, I'll walk you through Tesla's patent application for cathode production that includes a method for LFP cathode production, which, in my view, has a good chance of making its way into the Cybercab. If you enjoyed this video, please consider supporting the channel by using the links in the description. Also, consider following me on X. I often use X as a testbed for sharing ideas, and X subscribers, like my Patreon supporters, generally get access to my videos a week early. On that note, a special thanks to my YouTube members, X subscribers, and all the other patrons listed in the credits. I appreciate all of your support, and thanks for tuning in.